Today, we're talking training. I've been tweaking my approach to training for a couple of years now, so I think it's time to talk through my methods. We'll be covering my custom schedules, how I set up individual training, and how I use interactions to keep players training at the best level possible. Before that though, it's time to recap the saves since the last video. League form has been fantastic. We hit a bumpy patch for October and early November with 4 games without a win, but since then we've been literally perfect. The highlights are a dramatic late turnaround against local rivals FC Porto and a 5-1 battering of Moreirense. That puts us up in the lofty heights of second, although we have played more games than Benfica, Sporting and Porto. I don't realistically expect us to maintain this, but I'd be disappointed with anything below a 4th place finish from this position. The Cups have been a slightly tougher affair though. After progressing through the first 2 rounds during pre-season, we were drawn into a 3rd round group with Penafiel and Sporting. With only the top side from each group qualifying for the semi-finals, we were always up against it. We didn't do ourselves any favours though, barely scraping a draw in our game with 2nd Division Penafiel, meaning we had to beat Sporting to progress. We didn't play badly, but we never looked like winning the game, and a late winner for Sporting just served to seal our fate. The Taça de Portugal was also a shortcut run, with a win over 4th tier Imortal giving us an unfortunate tie against Benfica. We played pretty well and went ahead early, but having gone into extra time at 1-1, Benfica just had more than us and eventually sealed the victory. Also, with the transfer ban now over, we've been able to add some much needed depth to the squad. The sales of Makuta, Luis Santos and Thiago Moraes gave us a little bit of money to turn into wage budget, but transfer budget was minimal, so it was time for bargain hunt. Nelson Insfran costs £33,000 and comes in to challenge Gonçalves in goal. Chico Lamba is a cheap loan to offer an extra depth option at centre-back, but I really like his physicality. Pedro Malheiro has proven himself to be quite injury prone, so Emmanuel Atipo has signed on a free transfer to offer cover. I already love Mario Sergio. An absolute bargain at 28k, he's basically the replacement for Thiago Moraes and will play as a shadow striker. He's already bagged a couple of goals in his first couple of games. Cult hero Felipe Caicedo has joined on a free transfer to offer an extra option up front. He scored on his debut, but has looked completely naff since. Finally, the signing I'm most excited for. Former Football Manager wonderkid Romario Barros signs on loan from rivals Porto until the end of the season. He'll probably rotate with Perez as our ball winner, but also has the quality to be our more advanced midfielder if needed. Now that we're up to date, let's talk training. My approach to team training is based very loosely on the concept of tactical periodisation. Now, I'm certainly not the most qualified person to explain tactical periodisation in full. For that, I'd recommend checking out Tifo's video on the topic, which is in the card at the top of the screen. What I can tell you though is that tactical periodisation is an approach to training created by Vitor Prada and most famously used by the special one himself, Jose Mourinho. The concept revolves around the core idea of tactics being at the heart of everything that happens on the pitch, and therefore tactics need to be at the heart of every training session. It's impossible to faithfully recreate a tactical periodisation methodology within Football Manager, as you cannot combine physical, technical and tactical work within one session. But the part that I've tried to recreate is the use of micro, meso and macro training cycles. These are short, medium and long-term time periods, where the shorter cycles combine to work towards the longer-term goal. A micro cycle is a week's worth of training. These follow a bell curve, with the most intense training days at the midpoint between 2 matches. A meso cycle lasts a month. I've designed 4 schedules with the intention of using each once a month. This isn't always perfect, as some weeks have 2 games. Luckily, I have a schedule for that too. Over the course of a month, we always focus the same amount of attention on each training unit, but by changing the specific session we use each week, we can train a wider range of attributes. The macro cycle is an entire season. At the end of each season, I'll review the progress our players have made in their development, and if there are trends across the whole side that we aren't developing in certain areas, then we can look at tweaks to readdress the balance. Across the 4 schedules, we cover every attacking, defending, technical, tactical and goalkeeping session available. We also do one of each dedicated physical session per week, with the rest of the week being filled with a set pieces session, extracurriculars and match preparation. If you'd like to try the schedules for yourself, there's a link in the description below where you can download the full pack. There are 2 variations for each week, designed for matches on Saturdays and Sundays, plus an extra schedule for weeks with 2 games that focus more on match preparation and recovery. To use the schedules in-game, you'll need to extract the downloaded RAR file to your Football Manager 2024 folder, which by default will be in Documents. Once in the Football Manager 2024 folder, you'll need to put the schedules into the Schedules folder. If there isn't one there, just create one and you're good to go. Once in-game, you'll need to go to Training and then Schedules. From there, click Select Schedule in the top left corner and then head to Custom Schedules. Once you click Import Schedule at the bottom, you'll be able to import the schedules one at a time and start using them. Stick around though, because the way I use them combined with individual training is what gets me the results I'm looking for. Individual training gives the opportunity to further tweak a player's development through setting the role you wish a player to use in training, plus an additional focus to work on a handful of specific attributes. Setting this up at the start of a new save can be tedious, but once it's done it just needs the occasional tweak and the results can be excellent. First up, selecting the role. This might feel like it's something obvious that doesn't need explanation, but hear me out. I don't actually train players in the role they're playing in my tactic. Instead, I choose a role for their position that covers the widest range of attributes. There are a couple of reasons why I do this. Firstly, I tinker with roles a lot throughout games, so the extra tactical familiarity I may get would be less relevant for a lot of players. Secondly, I like to develop players to be as well-rounded as possible, in order to increase the flexibility I have within my squads. Now this isn't the most optimal approach, as each attribute gets less work in each session. However, I've still seen pretty good development in young players, and I hate having players with an obvious flaw in their game, so for me, this is the way to go. So the process here is pretty simple. I just go through each player and select the role I want them to play. I've put together a little graphic to show the roles I use for each position. As I rarely use a left or right midfielder in tactics, I haven't included them, because anybody natural in that position I would just train further forward. From there, we need to look at individual focus. Despite the added workload, I give an additional focus to every player. I'm keen for any opportunity I can get to increase development, and there are also some crucial attributes that get missed in the roles I use, so an individual focus can help to plug those gaps. The focus I choose depends on the player rather than the position. For players that are already fairly well rounded, I choose a focus that works on a couple of their weakest attributes, ideally ones outside of what is being worked on within their role. For players that do have a major weakness in an important attribute, I'll find a focus to work on it, even if their role already covers it. I tend to rotate the focus a player has at around the 3-month mark, as I find this is where development starts to slow. With our training set up, now we just need to put a couple of things in place to make sure players are working to their best. Firstly, I want to make sure we're working hard in training, but only at the right times. For that, I go into the Rest tab, and set up the intensity players will train at for different fitness levels. When players are in peak condition, I want them to work as hard as possible to maximise development. Slightly below and I'll take it down a notch, just to manage fatigue. At half fitness, I just want them doing gentle work, and anything below that gives them a complete rest to get their condition back. The last thing is a recurring task, and I won't lie, it's pretty tedious, but the results are fantastic. Every week when I get the Training Week in Review email, I head into the individual tab of the training menu and go about praising and criticising performances. I praise everybody at a 7.5 rating or over, while for criticism I only do it for players below a 6.4. This isn't perfect and players will still disagree from time to time, but I tend to find that these thresholds reduce that, and generally you can sweet talk players in the conversation to at least hear your point of view. Of course, you don't have to do this, it's completely optional, but I do find that if you keep up with it consistently, it can really help to boost the average training rating of your team. It's all very well explained in my approach, but the proof is in the pudding. Since we're only half a season into this little adventure, there hasn't really been enough time for much development to occur. However, I used this same approach in my Tokyo Verdy save earlier in the game cycle, so enjoy some before and after images of a few of my young stars from that save. So with training in place, we can now focus on maintaining our good form throughout the second half of the season. If you've enjoyed the video, then please drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. A reminder once again that there's a link in the description to the schedules pack, If you do give them a go, let me know in the comments how you find them. Until next time.